In this training, we will cover the following topics: general workplace safety, occupational health and wellness, hazard communication, personal protective equipment, emergency planning, fall protection, equipment and tools, electrical safety, hearing conservation, confined space entry, sexual harassment, substance abuse, and suicide prevention. Statistics show that 20% of all work-related injuries occur within the first 30 days of employment. The Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, or more commonly known as the OSH Act, is a U.S. labor law that aims to ensure safe and healthful working conditions for employees. Section 5 of the OSH Act is called the General Duty Clause. This clause states that each employer shall furnish to each of his employees employment and a place of employment which are free from recognized hazards that are causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm to their employees. Any worker coming to a project for the first time should be considered a new worker and given proper orientation and training. It should include the following: the company's expectations, how to safely operate tools and equipment, how to work safely around hazards or hazardous material likely to be encountered on the job, and how to properly select, maintain, and use any required personal protective equipment. An organization's overall safety program is guided by specific objectives and goals. These can include maintaining worker safety, preventing fires, vehicle accidents, or property damage loss, preventing fatalities, and preventing environmental accidents. Every employee plays a crucial role in helping to meet these goals. Safety is everyone's responsibility. A safety committee plays a crucial role in an effective safety program. They help employers identify potential issues, track trends, and make informed decisions to improve workplace safety. By including employees in the committee, these groups also empower the workforce, providing a platform for employees to voice concerns and offer suggestions. The OSH Act establishes an employee's right to the following: a safe and healthful workplace, knowledge about hazardous chemicals, the ability to report injuries to their employer, the opportunity to complain or request hazard corrections from employers, access to training, the employee's hazard exposure and medical records, the ability to file a complaint with OSHA, participation in OSHA inspections, and protection from retaliation for exercising their safety and health rights. Stop Work Authority empowers employees and contract workers with the ability and obligation to stop work if conditions are deemed at risk. If you see something that doesn't look right, report it to your supervisor or to the authorities if needed. If you notice unsafe work conditions, notify your supervisor immediately. If you believe working conditions are unsafe or unhealthful, you may file a complaint with OSHA concerning hazardous working conditions at any time. Under OSHA, your employer is required to report each worker death to OSHA, report each work-related hospitalization, amputation, or loss of an eye, maintain injury and illness records, inform workers how to report an injury or illness to the employer, keep records of injuries and illnesses, make records available to workers, allow OSHA access to records, and post annual summary of injuries and illnesses. OSHA requires your employer to keep and report records of work-related injuries and illnesses. This record keeping helps aid OSHA in carrying out actions such as developing information regarding the cause and prevention of injuries and illnesses, maintaining a program of collection, compilation, and analysis of statistics, and enforcing the OSH Act. Accidents and injuries must be properly reported, and under some circumstances, they must be reported by your employer to OSHA within a specific time limit. These circumstances include all work-related fatalities. These must be reported within 8 hours. And all work-related inpatient hospitalizations, amputations, and loss of an eye, these must be reported within 24 hours. Crystalline silica is a common mineral found in materials like sand, stone, concrete, and mortar. Respirable crystalline silica is created during the process of cutting, sawing, grinding, drilling, and crushing materials containing silica. This dust consists of very small particles, often 100 times smaller than ordinary sand. Workers who inhale silica particles are at increased risk of developing serious diseases like silicosis or lung cancer. Employers and workers must implement multiple levels of controls for mitigating silica exposure. Employers must replace crystalline silica materials with safer substitutes whenever possible. Employers must use engineering controls such as local exhaust ventilation and blasting cabinets to reduce exposures below the permissible exposure limits. Employers can also use administrative controls to change workplace policies, procedures, or practices regarding silica exposure. And lastly, if the prior engineering controls are not adequate, workers must use protective equipment. The following are ways to increase silica hazard awareness in the workplace. Participate in training, exposure monitoring, health screening, and surveillance programs to monitor any adverse health effects caused by crystalline silica exposures. Identify operations and job tasks that create crystalline silica exposures. Be aware of health hazards related with exposure to crystalline silica. And understand that smoking can add to the lung damage caused by silica exposure. To reduce the risk of silica exposure, do not eat, drink, smoke, or apply cosmetics in areas where crystalline silica dust is present. Vacuum the dust from your clothes or change into clean clothing before leaving the work site. Always wash your hands and face outside of dusty areas. And lastly, utilize showers if facilities are available. To protect yourself from silica exposure, wear disposable or washable work clothes. Wear an N95 NIOSH certified respirator if respirator protection is required. Do not alter respirators. And do not wear a tight-fitting respirator with a beard or mustache, as this can prevent a good seal between the respirator and the face. In an emergency, workers should know some first aid basics. If you encounter someone who is injured, ensure the surrounding environment is safe and that you or the victim are not in further danger or at risk. Quickly scan the victim from head to toe and check for responsiveness. Tap their shoulder and shout, "Are you okay?" If the victim is unresponsive or has any life-threatening conditions, call 911 and stay with the person until EMTs arrive. Roll an unconscious person face up, keeping the head, neck, and back in a straight line. If the victim is not breathing, perform CPR or use an automated external defibrillator, also known as an AED. If the victim is breathing, maintain an open airway and monitor breathing or any changes in condition. There are multiple degrees of burns that can result from hazards in the workplace. This includes first-degree burns, second-degree burns, and third-degree burns. First-degree burns are the least severe. They are characterized by redness or discoloration along with mild swelling and pain. They are commonly caused by overexposure to the sun. To treat first-degree burns, flush the affected area with cool, running water for 10 to 15 minutes and cover the burn with sterile gauze bandages. Consult a physician before taking any over-the-counter pain relievers. Second-degree burns are more serious and deeper than first-degree burns. They can cause more pain than the first-degree burn and typically look blistered, red, and spotted. They can also create a loss of fluids through the affected skin. To treat second-degree burns, run cool, not cold, water over the burn. Do not use ice to treat the burn, as extreme cold may cause additional tissue damage. If the burn is 3 inches or smaller in diameter, treat it as a minor burn. If the burn is larger than 3 inches in diameter or located on the hands, feet, face, groin, buttocks, or major joint, treat as a major burn and seek medical help immediately. Third-degree burns are the deepest and most severe. They look white or charred and go through all skin layers. They are also very painful or can cause no pain at all if the nerves are damaged. To treat third-degree burns, seek medical attention immediately. Check for signs of circulation such as breathing, coughing, or movement. Do not remove burned clothing. Do not immerse large or severe burns in water. Cover the area of the burn with a cool, moist, sterile cloth and elevate the burned body parts. If someone at work has experienced a fracture, sprain, strain, or dislocation, control the bleeding if bleeding is present. Observe the victim for signs of shock. Remain with the person and use cold packs to help reduce pain and swelling. If you suspect a fracture, seek immediate medical attention. Do not attempt to treat the person yourself. For first aid treatment of fractures, sprains, strains, and dislocations, use the Rice method until help arrives. Rest. Do not move or straighten the injured area. Immobilize. Stabilize the injured area in the position it was found to prevent further injury. Cold. Fill a plastic bag with ice and water and apply to the injured area for about 20 minutes. And elevate. Elevate the injured part only if it does not cause more pain. Let's discuss heat-related illnesses. There are 3 types of heat-related illnesses that can occur: heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and heat cramps. Of the 3 types of heat illnesses, heat stroke is the most serious. It is life-threatening, it requires immediate treatment, it occurs when the body's heat-regulating mechanism fails, and it can cause brain damage or death unless the body is cooled quickly. Signs and symptoms of heat stroke can include headaches, lack of body sweat, body temperatures greater than 103 degrees, hot, red, and dry skin, nausea or vomiting, rapid, strong pulses, and loss of consciousness. For first aid treatment of heat stroke victims, first call 911 immediately and then move the victim to a cool place and have them rest. Watch for signs of shock. Do not give any food or drink by mouth, and quickly cool down the victim by immersing them in cold water bath for 15 minutes, sponging the person's skin with a damp cloth, placing cold, wet cloths or ice packs on the person's head, neck, armpits, and groin, and circulate air around the person with a fan. Heat exhaustion is caused by fluid loss, which can decrease blood flow in vital organs. Signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion can include dizziness, excessive sweating, cool, pale, or clammy skin, nausea or vomiting, a rapid or weak pulse, and muscle cramps. If you encounter a worker with heat exhaustion, call 911 if medical care is unavailable. Remove the worker from a hot area and give liquids to drink. Remove unnecessary clothing, including shoes and socks. Cool the worker with cold compresses, or have the worker rinse their head, face, and neck with cold water. Encourage frequent sips of cool water and stay with the worker until help arrives. Heat cramps are generally caused by loss of water and salt through sweating during strenuous work. Symptoms can include muscle cramps, pain, or spasms in the abdomen, arms, or legs. If someone is experiencing heat cramps, get them to a cool place and have them drink a half a glass of water every 15 minutes if able. Be sure to increase fluid intake when performing activities in hot weather. Hypothermia is a dangerous condition caused by low body temperatures which can become life-threatening. Signs and symptoms of hypothermia can include shivering, dizziness, numbness, confusion, weakness, impaired judgment, impaired vision, and drowsiness. Hypothermia victims pass through 5 different stages, with each stage increasing in severity. The stages are shivering, apathy, loss of consciousness, decreasing pulse and breath rate, and death. Take the following steps to treat a worker with hypothermia. Move the victim into a warm room or shelter. Remove their wet clothing. Warm the center of their body, first the chest, then their neck, head, and groin by using an electric blanket if one is available. Provide warm, non-alcoholic beverages. Keep the victim dry and wrapped in a warm blanket. And if the victim has no pulse, begin administering CPR. Bloodborne pathogens are infectious microorganisms in human blood that can cause disease, including hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and HIV. Needle sticks and other sharps-related injuries can expose workers to bloodborne pathogens. To aid in identifying bloodborne pathogen hazards, be sure to understand the threats and which job duties can expose you to them. Workers rendering first aid, performing maintenance, or performing housekeeping must take care to protect themselves. When it comes to bloodborne pathogens, your employer must perform hazard assessments, identify and provide appropriate PPE to workers at no cost, train workers on use and care, maintain and replace PPE, and review, update, and evaluate the PPE program. When selecting PPE, ensure it is safely designed and fits comfortably. It is an employer requirement to have PPE training, which includes when PPE is necessary, what kind of PPE is necessary, proper donning, adjusting, wearing, and doffing of PPE, limitations of PPE, and proper care, maintenance, useful life, and disposal of PPE. Most back problems are preventable. There are a variety of stressors that improper lifting, twisting, and bending can put on the back. Back problems commonly occur through strains and sprains, torn ligaments, ruptured or slipped discs, and muscle spasms. Implement these safe lifting techniques to help aid in preventing back injuries. Lift with your knees. Keep your shoulders and upper back straight. Do not slouch. Stand straight with weight centered over your hips. And get help if the item is too heavy. Non-work-related factors can contribute to back problems as well, such as poor posture and poor physical condition. When sitting, keep your knees slightly higher than your hip. When lying down or sleeping, keep your knees slightly bent. Please note that sleeping on the stomach can lead to morning backaches. About 32 million workers are potentially exposed to one or more chemical hazards. There are an estimated 575,000 existing chemical products. Chemical exposure may contribute to many serious health effects, including heart ailments, kidney and lung damage, sterility, cancer, burns, rashes, and death. The Hazard Communication Standard, also known as HAZCOM, or OSHA 29 CFR 1910.1200, ensures that chemical hazards are evaluated and information on those chemicals is given to employees. HAZCOM programs include the identification of chemical hazards, chemical labeling, and safety data sheets, also known as SDSs. The Global Harmonized System, also known as GHS, is an internationally agreed upon system for classifying and labeling hazardous chemicals. The Hazard Communication Standard, or HAZCOM, is now aligned with the GHS standard to ensure that information about chemicals and their ingredients can be universally communicated. The Hazard Communication Standard requires the chemical manufacturer, distributor, or importer to provide SDSs to downstream users. SDSs must be readily accessible to any employee using a hazardous chemical. SDSs communicate information on hazards in a consistent, user-friendly 16-section format. Sections 1 through 11 are as follows: identification, hazard identification, composition and information on ingredients, first aid measures, firefighting measures, accidental release measures, handling and storage, exposure controls and personal protection, physical and chemical properties, stability and reactivity, and toxicological information. Sections 12 through 15 are considered non-mandatory. These include ecological information, disposal information, transport information, and regulatory information. And lastly, Section 16 includes other information such as safety, health, and environmental regulations specific to the product not otherwise indicated on the SDS. The following are disposal requirements for hazardous substances. All chemicals used or stored on site must be disposed of properly and reported. All used batteries, oil, and fluorescent lamps should be recycled. All syringes must be disposed of in biohazard containers, and all sharps, such as broken glass, should be disposed of in a puncture-proof container. Now let's discuss process safety management, also known as PSM. In any industry using highly hazardous chemicals, there is a potential for an accidental release which can lead to a disaster. The Process Safety Management of Highly Hazardous Chemicals Standard contains requirements for the management of hazards associated with processes using highly hazardous chemicals. Training is required for employees who operate a process that involves any of the following: a chemical at or above the specified threshold quantities, pressure vessels, storage tanks, piping systems, relief and vent systems, emergency shutdown systems, controls, and pumps. PSM training emphasizes specific safety and health hazards, procedures, emergency operations that include shutdowns, safe practices applicable to job tasks, and significant changes in processes. Some jobs involve hazards that cannot be eliminated through the use of engineering controls. As a last option, employees must wear the appropriate PPE. Appropriate PPE may include footwear, eye and face protection, hand and arm protection, head protection, respiratory protection, and protective clothing. Under OSHA, your employer is required to provide PPE at no cost to workers, assess workplace hazards, identify and provide appropriate PPE, train workers in the use and care of PPE, maintain and replace worn or damaged PPE, and periodically evaluate the PPE program. As an employee, it is your responsibility to properly wear PPE, attend training sessions on PPE, care for, clean, and maintain PPE, and inform a supervisor of the need to repair or replace PPE. Employees must receive training in the following areas: when PPE is necessary, what PPE is necessary, how to put on, take off, adjust, and wear PPE, how to care for, maintain, dispose of PPE, and the limitations and useful life of PPE. PPE comes in multiple forms of protection, such as head protection, eye protection, foot protection, hearing protection, high visibility clothing, and respiratory protection. Head protection may include hard hats, which protect the head from falling objects, bumps with fixed objects, or accidental head contact with electrical hazards. Hard hats must be replaced after a heavy blow or electrical shock. Prescription glasses with side shields must meet minimum ANSI requirements. Foot protection may include footwear with a composite toe and a minimum 6-inch boot. If your role requires specific footwear, follow guidelines at all times. Hearing protection keeps noise levels below the OSHA recommended 90 dBA as an 8-hour time-awaited average. Be sure to select hearing protection with an adequate noise reduction rating. As a general rule, if you have to raise your voice to be heard 2 to 3 feet away, the sound level is likely at or above 90 dBA. High visibility clothing may be worn in lieu of the vest. At a minimum, a Class II reflective vest should be worn while working on site. Respiratory protection is a critical part of every PPE program. Your employer must develop and implement a written program with required work-specific procedures and use NIOSH certified respirators. As a worker, you must be medically approved and trained before you are assigned a task requiring respirator use. You must also be fit tested if using a negative or positive pressure tight-fitting facepiece. The best fire protection is fire prevention. Fire is a chemical reaction that requires 3 elements to be present for the reaction to take place and continue. This is known as the fire triangle. The 3 elements are heat or an ignition source, fuel, and oxygen. To extinguish a fire, take away one of the elements from the fire triangle. It's important to know how fires are classified, how they spread, and when it's safe to use an extinguisher. Different types of fire extinguishers are designed to fight different types of fires. Fires are classified based on the type of substance fueling the fire. The following chart details different classes of fires and their correlating examples. Class A fires are ordinary combustibles, such as paper, trash, some plastics, wood, and cloth. Class B fires are flammable gases or liquids, such as propane, butane, gasoline, petroleum oil, and paint. Class C fires are energized electrical equipment, such as appliances, motors, and transformers. Class D fires are combustible metals, such as potassium, lithium, sodium, aluminum, and magnesium. And lastly, Class K fires. Class K fires are cooking oils and greases, such as animal fats and vegetable oils. When using fire extinguishers, use the pass technique. Pull the pin on the extinguisher. Aim at the base of the fire. Squeeze the handle and sweep at the fire, moving from side to side. Remember, if a fire cannot be extinguished using one full extinguisher, evacuate the site and let the fire department handle the situation. OSHA requires your employer to establish an alarm system to alert workers on the job site and local fire departments of fire emergencies. They must also post alarm codes and reporting instructions near telephones and worker entrances. The emergency action plan at your job site will include the following: emergency escape procedures, equipment operation procedures prior to evacuation, Procedures to account for all workers. Rescue and medical duties for those workers responsible for such duties. Preferred means of reporting emergencies, and names and titles of workers with duties under the plan. Proper storage and handling of flammable and combustible liquids will help prevent fires from occurring. Containers must be closed and approved for storage of flammable or combustible liquids. This includes safety cans or containers approved by the U.S. Department of Transportation. A safety can is a container that has a self-closing lid, internal pressure relief, and flame arrestor with a capacity of not more than 5 gallons. Falls are among the most common causes of serious work-related injuries and deaths. Employers must set up the workplace to prevent employees from falling off overhead platforms, elevated workstations, or into holes in the floor and walls. OSHA requires that fall protection be provided at elevations of 4 feet in general industry workplaces, 5 feet in shipyards, 6 feet in the construction industry, and 8 feet in longshoring operations. Fall protection must also be used when working over dangerous equipment and machinery, regardless of the fall distance. A personal fall arrest system, also known as a PFAS, is a system that protects workers from falling by stopping or arresting their fall. A PFAS prevents a worker from falling and contacting a lower level. A PFAS consists of a full body harness, lanyard or lifeline, and anchor. A personal fall arrest system must limit the maximum arresting force to 1,800 pounds, bring the worker to a complete stop, limit the maximum deceleration distance to 3.5 feet, be able to withstand twice the potential impact energy of free-falling worker, and have an anchor point that supports at least 5,000 pounds. For a PFAS to be effective, all employees exposed to a fall must be effectively tied off. The fall distance and anchor point must be calculated, approved, and deemed adequate by a competent person. And the personal fall arrest system must be removed from service if defects are found. When using a PFAS, the lanyard must be shock absorbing and must be attached to the D-ring in the middle of the back at the shoulder level. The PFAS cannot be attached to a guardrail system. Positioning devices must be rigged so that the employee cannot fall more than 2 feet. Positioning devices must also be connected to an anchor capable of supporting at least twice the load impact, or 3,000 pounds, whichever is greater. And lastly, your employer must provide for a prompt rescue of workers in the event of a fall. The following chart can be used to help understand the calculation of total fall clearance distance. Total fall distance is a combination of the following factors: free fall distance, deceleration distance, D-ring shift, the back D-ring height, and the safety factor. The purpose of guardrails is to prevent falls or unauthorized access to certain areas. Generally, guardrails are required when the building has steps, landings, platforms, or accessible roof spaces. The top edge height of the top rails of guardrail systems should be between 39 to 45 inches above the walking working surface. The top edge height may exceed 45 inches, provided the guardrail system meets all other criteria of CFR 1910.29b. The most common accidents and injuries on a work site are slips, trips, and falls. To minimize injury or death from incidents involving slips, trips, and falls, please follow your company's prevention procedures. This includes worksite evaluations, hazard elimination, and employee training. To minimize the risk of injury from slips, trips, and falls, avoid running or walking too fast, especially in higher risk areas. Avoid carrying items that can obstruct your view of your pathway. Avoid distractions, such as looking down at your phone while working. Avoid walking through potential slips, trip, and fall hazards. Do not place items in walkways such as electrical cords. Wear proper footwear with soles that grip the ground. Avoid walking in areas under construction. Stay on designated paths. Use extra caution when traveling both outdoors and indoors during wet weather. Clean up spills promptly and be sure to report spills and wet floor surfaces immediately. Use warning signs or other equally effective means, such as barricades in areas where a slip hazard is present. And report uneven walking surfaces caused by holes, broken or loose floor tiles, or defective or wrinkled carpets, mats, or rugs. OSHA defines heavy equipment as heavy-duty vehicles that are specifically designed to assist with construction. It includes equipment such as backhoes, bulldozers, cranes, forklifts, and farm equipment. OSHA classifies self-powered, self-propelled, or pull-type equipment weighing at least 1,500 pounds as heavy equipment as well. That includes machinery and equipment used for agriculture, construction, industrial, maritime, mining, or forestry endeavors. When working with or around heavy equipment, only use it for its intended purpose. Maintain a minimum of 10-foot. Hundreds of deaths are attributed to contact with electrical current each year. Electricity has long been recognized as a serious workplace hazard. OSHA's electrical standards are designed to protect employees that are exposed to dangers such as electrical shock, electrocution, fires, and explosions. Electric shock occurs when the human body becomes part of a path through which electrons can flow. The resulting effect on the body can be either direct or indirect. Direct injuries can include electrocution, electrical shock, or burns, whereas indirect injuries can include things like falls from heights or burns from fires. Burns are the most common shock-related injury. An electrical accident can result in an electrical burn, arc burn, or thermal contact burn. Electrical burns are among the most serious burns and require immediate medical attention. They occur when the electrical current flows through tissues or bone, generating heat that causes tissue damage. An arc flash is the initial electrical discharge that occurs when the current flows through the air between conductors. An arc blast is an explosive force generated by an arc flash. It can cause significant damage and injuries due to pressure waves and flying projectiles. Arc blasts can also cause severe burns. Many accidents can occur during the servicing and maintenance of equipment. Lockout Tagout, also known as LOTO, is a warning and prevention system to prevent against unexpected startup and release of stored energy. The purpose of LOTO is to ensure that unexpected startup or release of stored energy will not occur, and to inform others that Lockout Tagout is being applied. Hearing conservation programs strive to create awareness of noise exposure hazards, prevent initial occupational hearing loss, preserve and protect remaining hearing, and equip workers with hearing protection devices to safeguard themselves. Your employer is required to measure noise levels, provide free annual hearing exams, hearing protection, and training, and conduct evaluations of hearing protection and use. Noise is a pervasive occupational health problem and is a byproduct of many industrial processes. The effects of noise exposure hazards depend on the loudness and frequency, the length of exposure, and your age and health. Noise exposure can make you tired, irritable, and increase your stress levels. It can also lead to permanent hearing loss. OSHA requires employers to implement a hearing conservation program when noise exposure is at or above 85 decibels averaged over 8 working hours. If you are exposed to an 8-hour time-weighted average of 85 decibels or greater, your employer must provide hearing protection at no cost. Hearing protection must be replaced as necessary. If engineering or administrative controls are not feasible to reduce exposure to excessive noise, you must use appropriate PPE, including earplugs, earmuffs, or both. Many workplaces contain areas that are considered confined spaces. Confined spaces are not designed for people to work in regularly, but are large enough for workers to enter and perform certain jobs. A confined space has limited or restricted means for entry or exit and is not designed for continuous occupancy. Confined spaces include, but are not limited to, tanks, vessels, silos, storage bins, hoppers, vaults, pits, manholes, tunnels, equipment housings, ductwork, pipelines, and more. A permit-required confined space has one or more of the following characteristics. It contains or it has the potential to contain a hazardous atmosphere. It contains material that has the potential to engulf an entrant. It has spaces that may taper into a smaller area which could trap or asphyxiate an entrant. Or it contains any other recognized safety or health hazards, exposed live wires, or heat stress, Only properly trained employees are permitted in confined spaces. When working in or around confined spaces, it is important to implement the following practices. Perform a pre-entry checklist to identify hazards or the potential for hazards. Know and understand how to use all types of PPE, from respirators and other breathing equipment to protective gloves and harnesses. Test for flammable gases, vapors, and potential toxic air contaminants before work can begin. The same is true for oxygen levels. And lastly, always make sure there is a rescue crew on standby. Engulfment results when a worker is surrounded and overcome by a substance. This can happen through suffocation, such as breathing in a substance that fills the lungs, or through drowning in a liquid. Hazardous energy from machines, electrical equipment, mechanical equipment, and pressurized systems poses a huge threat. Employees must follow necessary energy isolation and lockout-tagout procedures when working in and around confined spaces. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 makes it illegal to discriminate against someone based on their race, color, religion, national origin, or sex. It is also illegal to retaliate against a person because they complained about discrimination, filed a charge of discrimination, or participated in an employment discrimination investigation or lawsuit. Title VII applies to employers with 15 or more employees, including state and local governments. It also applies to employment agencies, labor organizations, as well as the federal government. Under Title VII, it is unlawful to discriminate in any aspect of employment, including hiring and firing, compensation and assignment or classification of employees, transfer, promotion, layoff, or recall, job advertisements and recruitment, testing, use of company facilities, training and apprenticeship programs, retirement plans, leave and benefits, and other terms and conditions of employment. It is unlawful to harass a person because of that person's sex. Harassment can include sexual harassment or unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or any other verbal or physical harassment of a sexual nature. Conduct constitutes sexual harassment when it is explicit or implicit, affects an individual's employment, unreasonably interferes with an individual's work or performance, or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. Harassment does not have to be of a sexual nature. It also includes offensive remarks about a person's sex. Workplace harassment is not isolated to male and female interaction. It can also include same-sex interactions. The harasser can be a supervisor in another area, a co-worker, or someone who is not an employee of the employer, such as a client or customer. The victim does not have to be the person harassed, but could be anyone affected by the offensive conduct. Unlawful sexual harassment may occur without economic injury to or discharge of the victim. While the law does not forbid mild teasing, casual remarks, or isolated non-serious incidents, frequent and severe harassment is illegal, especially when it fosters a hostile or offensive work environment. An action can be considered sexual harassment if it is unwelcomed, physical, verbal or nonverbal, severe or pervasive, unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance, and creating a hostile work environment due to conduct directed at the claimant, conduct directed at the others, or widespread sexual favoritism. Retaliation is when someone is punished for speaking up about harassment or other forms of discrimination. Any retaliation is against the law. Retaliation can occur after someone opposes sexual harassment, reports or files claims of sexual harassment, or participates in an investigation of sexual harassment. Retaliation includes actions such as changes in assignments, failing to communicate, gossiping, demotions, and threats. Substance abuse is defined as the use of substances for purposes other than their intended use, or substances used in excessive amounts. Commonly abused substances can include illegal drugs, prescription drugs or medication, over-the-counter drugs, and alcohol. Substance abuse can impact people in numerous ways, such as addiction, overdose, social, physical, and emotional problems, suicide, and death. There are numerous drugs and substances that can alter a person's thinking and judgment. This can lead to health risks, addiction, drugged driving, infectious diseases, and adverse effects on pregnancies. The following list from the National Institute on Drug Abuse shows commonly used drugs that have the potential for misuse or addiction. Workers and employers must understand how to look for substance abuse in the workplace. Signs that may indicate a person is using drugs can include frequent bathroom breaks, changes in behavior and personality, hiding, poor job performance, and physical signs such as dilated pupils, slurred speech, and confusion. Someone with a drug abuse problem can exhibit the following signs: excessive risk-taking, especially when driving and operating machinery, neglecting responsibilities at work or home, and an onset of legal trouble such as an arrest for disorderly conduct, DUI, or drug possession. Behavioral signs are more likely to be noticed before other types of signs. Common behavioral signs of drug abuse can include a drop in attendance, performance, and motivation at work, acting suspicious or being more secretive, and a sudden change in hobbies, hangouts, and friends. Psychological behavior is another tale of drug abuse. Look for noticeable changes in their user's personality, demeanor, and behavior. This can include sudden and unexplainable changes in personality and attitude, mood swings, irritability, or angry outbursts, and an increase in fear, anxiety, or paranoia. Narcotics are considered high risk due to their strong potential for addictiveness. Taking narcotics for a long period of time, even when prescribed, can increase the risk of addiction. Whether you are a struggling addict, recovering addict, or drug-free, always talk with a prescribing doctor about the risks associated with the medication being prescribed. The following signs can indicate a person may be experiencing an overdose: unconsciousness, lips and fingertips appearing blue or gray, inability to speak, slow or shallow breathing, gurgling, choking, or snoring sounds while breathing, small pupils, large pupils, vomiting, and no reaction to physical contact. Naloxone, also known as Narcan, is a nasal spray that is given to a victim who is having an opioid overdose. It rapidly attaches to the opioid receptors and reverses the block effects of other opioids. It will not have any harmful effect on someone who does not have any opioids in their system. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, also known as SAMHSA, provides 5 essential steps responding to an opioid overdose. Step 1, evaluate for signs of opioid overdose. Step 2, call 911 for help. Step 3, administer naloxone. Step 4, support the victim's breathing. And Step 5, monitor the victim's response until help arrives. The following video, produced by SAMHSA, details naloxone and its use in overdose situations.
People are dying every day from opioid overdose. Parents and children, friends and neighbors. But naloxone can help. Naloxone is a safe and effective rescue medication that reverses the effects of opioids and saves lives. To understand how naloxone can stop and reverse the effects of an opioid overdose, it's helpful to see how opioids work in the body. Opioids are agonists. This means they bind to and activate specific receptors in the body, including the brain, brainstem, and spinal cord. When these receptors are activated, people experience the effects produced by opioids, such as pain relief, euphoria, calmness, relaxation, and slowed breathing. Taking too many opioids causes so many receptors to fill and activate that breathing may become dangerously slow and even stop. This is how an opioid overdose happens, and this is where naloxone can help. Naloxone has a strong affinity to opioid receptors, more so than most prescription opioids and heroin. But unlike opioids, naloxone is an antagonist. This means it attaches to opioid receptors without activating them. So when naloxone is administered during an overdose, it knocks the opioids responsible out of the way and allows breathing to normalize. Naloxone can be administered through an injection or a nasal spray. It usually starts working within a few minutes and lasts from 30 to 90 minutes. While one dose of naloxone can reverse an overdose, sometimes multiple doses are needed, especially in cases involving extremely potent opioids like fentanyl, or opioids that stay in the body longer than naloxone. Naloxone is very safe in single or multiple doses. It may produce withdrawal symptoms in people with opioid dependence, but it has no abuse potential and cannot cause an overdose. It's important to remember that naloxone is opioid-specific. It has no effect on an overdose caused solely by non-opioid substances like benzodiazepines or alcohol. At the same time, people shouldn't be afraid to use naloxone when the cause of an overdose is unknown. If opioids were not involved in an overdose, it won't cause any harm. If opioids were involved, naloxone can save a life.
There are no specific requirements for drug tests in the workplace, but federal, state, and private employees are all subject to drug tests. If a job requires a drug test upon hire, the worker has the right to refuse the drug test, but the employer also has the right to refuse the job. If a worker appears impaired, the employer may request a drug test. Check with your employer as well as state laws regarding drug tests. The Drug-Free Workplace Helpline is a service designed to equip workers and their families with the essential knowledge to resolve substance misuse and drug testing issues. This helpline is staffed Monday through Friday and can be reached at 1-800-WORKPLACE or 800-967-5752. Suicide affects all levels of construction, including laborers, skilled trade workers, operators, and even management. In the U.S., male construction workers have a suicide rate that's 65% higher than other male workers. Construction workers are twice as likely than other work professionals to commit suicide. Mental health issues in construction workers can be caused by a variety of factors, including physical strain, long hours, job instability, isolation, poor working conditions, and poor work culture. The culture of the construction industry can make it hard to ask for help or support. Work-related risk factors may include inconsistent or seasonal work, demanding schedules, and workplace injuries that are sometimes treated with opioids. Someone who is at risk may exhibit changes in behavior, post alarming social media, or give away verbal cues. Take these signs seriously. It could save a life. Some of the most common signs include an increase of lateness or absenteeism, decreased productivity, decreased self-confidence and communication, signs of substance abuse, frequent agitation, decreased awareness and care for safety in the workplace, and disconnectedness from the group. If you're in crisis, there are options available to help you. You can call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at any time to speak with someone and get support. For confidential support, 988 is available 24/7 for everyone in the United States. You can also text HELLO to 741-741. On the surface, it may seem awkward or impolite to talk about suicide, but simply asking someone if they are okay is always a respectable way to check in and look out for your fellow coworkers. Below are some additional resources to help with suicide prevention. The OSHA Preventing Suicide webpage. The American Psychiatric Association Foundation Center for Workplace Mental Health, and the Association of General Contractors. In this training, we've discussed the following topics: general safety requirements, occupational health and wellness, hazard communication, personal protective equipment, emergency planning, fall protection, heavy equipment and tools, electrical safety, hearing conservation, confined space entry, sexual harassment, substance abuse awareness, and suicide prevention. I'm Destry with JJ Safety. Thanks for watching.